What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about a critical upgrade for your small E-moto, that is brakes. Many people feel that the stock brakes on their bike just aren't up to the task of actually braking, actually stopping you. And it's one of the biggest questions that we get asked all the time in the comments on these videos and in all the Facebook groups. So today we have tested 7 different brake sets on bikes that we have literally right around here. We've ridden them thousands of miles, gotten a really good feel and experience with each of these models. And today we're gonna help you understand what brake set is gonna be best for you to upgrade to based on the type of riding you do. So of the 7 brakes we are testing, the least expensive starts at $500 for the set. The most expensive starts at $1,000 for the set. The first brake on our list is made by Volar Sport. This is the first moto style brake specifically designed for these lightweight bikes. This is the most expensive brake on our list at $950. The next brake on our list is the Tech EP6. This is a 6-piston brake, again, specifically designed for these lightweight E-motos. It is not really a large moto style brake, but it does have 6 pistons and it is larger. This is another expensive brake at $850. Next up, we have another brake from Tech. This is the LH4. This is a smaller 4-piston downhill mountain bike style brake. These brakes come in at $680. Next up, we have Sram Maven brakes. This is a new brake from a large manufacturer called Sram. They make tons of mountain bike components, really high-end brakes, really high-end parts. And this is a new brake that just recently came out. It's their most powerful offering, and we've been riding it. And you might be surprised, this is one of the best brakes on the list. This brake comes in at $600 for the pair. Next up, we have a good old tried and tested TRP DHR Evo brake. This brake comes in also at $600 for the set in the gold color. Black is $540 for a set. We've been running these for a long time, and it's gonna do well in this brake test. Next up, we have the Tech 4V4 brakes. This is another awesome brake that is right in the same price category, around $600 for the set. And then last up, we have the Hayes Dominion A4 brakes. This is another mountain bike style brake from the company Hayes. These brakes are the least expensive at $500. All right guys, as we start comparing these brakes in lots of different categories, we did not get sent any of these brakes for free. We paid for all of them. This is a totally unbiased review. If you guys are interested in purchasing any of these brakes, we'll have a link down in the video description for the place we recommend buying each specific model. So we'll be comparing all these brakes in a bunch of different categories, and by the end of the video, we're gonna help you understand what brake set is gonna be best for the type of riding you do. We'll be going over what's best for like a motocross track, what's best for the street, and what's best for like trails or desert or mountain riding. Okay, so of the 7 brakes that we are reviewing today, 2 of them are not here with us in person. We have ridden them a good fair bit and really gotten a good feeling for how they perform. The first brake on our list today is gonna be the Hayes Dominion A4. This is the least expensive on our list at $500 for the set, front and rear. This is a good brake. This is the brake I first upgraded on my Talaria. A couple issues we had with it are, one, it's designed for a thin rotor, 1.8 millimeters thick. Now this is a problem because most of the stock bikes now, their rotors come at 2.3 millimeters thick, which is thick enough that there wasn't enough gap between the pads to where I pretty much couldn't get that brake to not rub. It would rub all the time while I was riding it. It made the brake pads wear out extremely quickly. With that rotor issue, it also turns into a compatibility issue. On the Talaria Sting R rear wheel, there is no 1.8 millimeter thick rotor that can mount on the stock Talaria rear wheel. So keep that in mind. If you do purchase these brakes, we really recommend you get a 1.8 millimeter thick rotor front and rear. So if you have a Talaria, it's really not gonna work for you. But moving on to like power and performance, the brake did perform well. It was a big improvement over any of the stock brakes, but I think it is the lowest on our list in terms of power and performance. It does have a nice light lever feel, so if you like a really light lever, it is good for that. But again, the one issue being that thin rotor problem, it is a pretty big issue, and it's not gonna be my most recommended brake on this list, but it is the least expensive. Second on our list are the TRP DHR Evo brakes. This is the brake we have actually spent the most time on. Me, Alex, and Reed bought these as our upgraded brakes after I got rid of the haze. We bought the TRPs and we've been running them for over a year now. We've had them on 4 different bikes, 3 Talaria Stings and this Talaria XXX here. In black, they come in at $540, which I think is a great value for this brake. If you go with the silver color or the gold color, they do get more expensive, up to $600 for the set. These brakes, the one thing we really like is they are designed specifically for a 2.3 millimeter thick rotor, which again is the width that comes on most stock e-bikes. So you can buy these brakes, mount them straight up. They do have good performance. They have a light lever feel, so you can kind of see that there. They feel good, they lock in hard, and the one thing with like reliability, we haven't had a single issue having these brakes on 4 bikes, riding them hard. We haven't had to bleed them one time. When we got the brakes, they don't even come connected, so you have to connect the hoses, but there's no bleeding. You just trim it to the right length, you connect it, didn't have to bleed it in our case, and we haven't had to bleed it in over a year of owning it and riding it. So as far as compatibility, reliability, bleeding, these brakes are exceptional. Another thing we like about these TRP brakes is they use a very standard upgraded brake pad. It's the same as like any Shimano 4-piston pad. We sell an upgraded pad by MTX Braking on our website, and they all fit the same pads as all the stock bikes, like stock Sur-Ron, stock Talaria, stock XXX, stock E-Ride Pro. They all use the same brake pad size and shape as the TRP, so it's very, very easy to find brake pads when you wear them out. There are going to be more powerful brakes on our list, but not by a huge margin. So these are a good tried and true tested brake, the TRP DHR Evo. Next up on our list is the HopeTech 4 V4 brake. This is the other brake that we don't have here in person. We haven't spent a huge amount of time riding this brake, but we have borrowed a couple of buddies' bikes and spent some time on it. The brake does feel really strong, has a good lever pull. It is, from my understanding, a very reliable brake and doesn't necessarily have like huge issues with bleeding or performance. There are good upgraded brake pads you can get for this brake, so it's not super difficult to find those when you wear them out. Brake comes in at about $600 for the set. You can get a couple cool colors. You can get cool braided hose lines if you want to pay extra. All around, this is a good brake. A lot of people really like it when they upgrade to it. All right, guys, now we have these new Sram Maven brakes. This is the ultimate model. They do have 2 lower tier options, the silver and then the bronze. Silver is like $560. These are $600 for the set. And the bronze is way less expensive at like $360 for a set. So we are curious to try the bronze someday because they might be an incredible brake for the value. But right now we're running the Maven Ultimates on our fully modded Surron build. This bike's 167 pounds and they are doing awesome. So we're gonna hype up these brakes a little bit because we've been very, very impressed with their performance. They have good lever feel. They're a nice, stiff, predictable lever that actually has a bearing in here, so it feels quite different from any of the other brakes. But if you come from any other SRAM brakes, you'll know that they are very high quality brakes. They're going to be very reliable, no bleeding issues. You're going to be able to find replacement parts, upgraded brake pads, everything very, very easily. So they're going to do well in the reliability department. We've had them on this bike for 700 miles, and I just looked at the brake pads yesterday. I took them out to try to inspect them, see how long they're lasting, and they're like half worn out, which is amazing for like brake pad life on a brake. And we ride this bike hard. It is a heavy bike. So we're very impressed with the Sram Mavens. At $600, I think they're an awesome brake, and I think they're gonna be one of the winners of this entire test. So don't sleep on the Sram Mavens. The one thing that is a little disappointment, if Alex comes over here, you don't have much room to mount your controls. Because this lever comes right next to your bar, you pretty much space it out as far as you can to have your fingers still be able to reach it. I could fit my thumb regen brake and my light switch, and then on this side, I could only fit my throttle and my thin display. So these brakes will not fit with the stock E-Ride Pro big sport mode, eco mode button setup. So that's one thing to keep in mind. These brakes aren't going to be the most compatible for lots of accessories on the bar, but they do work. I found a way to get the setup to be how I like it. They do work well with the 2.3 millimeter thick rotor. Pads are lasting a long time. These brakes are extremely powerful. I used to work at a mountain bike shop and I've ridden pretty much every mountain bike style brake there is, including the rest that are in this lineup. And these are the most powerful mountain bike style brake. If you do end up wanting to purchase these brakes, I do recommend you buy 2 rear brakes, because these levers can actually be flipped either way. So you don't have to there's not a specific brake lever for left and for right. You can flip them around, and the reason we want you to buy a rear is because the hose will be long enough. I actually bought a front and a rear, and I had to buy a whole new hose because the front wasn't long enough to reach down to the caliper when you have a tall direct mount stem, a tall bar, and you move the brake to the moto side of the handlebar instead of the mountain bike style side. Next up, we have the Lewis Tech LH4 brakes. These retail for $680 for the set. These are, in my opinion, an expensive brake for what you get. Now, they do have good performance. They do have a lot of power. I think that the Sram Mavens that we just reviewed have more power than these do. And then moving on to reliability, we just got this set pretty recently and we haven't been able to get this brake to feel good. We've bled it 3 times. We've tried all the tricks in the book. We've done full-on bleed with syringes on both ends. We've changed out all the fluid. We've tried to get as much air out as possible. And when you pull this brake, it just keeps pulling and pulling and pulling all the way till it hits your throttle and your grip. So it's kind of worked for us to try to like ride it and review it, and we've been able to do it if we just do quick pulls like this. But that's not how a brake is supposed to perform, and we can't find any oil leaking. We don't know what's going on. But as far as like reliability and stuff, Lewis hasn't been our favorite, and we'll talk about that more in a minute when we review the EP6 brake. So in my opinion, like I have a hard time recommending this brake because I think like the TRP and the Sram Maven are a better brake for less money, and they're gonna have more reliability, and they have, you know, pads that you can upgrade to and get really easily when you wear them out. Lewis Tech's just a smaller company, and they do make nice brakes, but they're not going to be the ones that I'm going to recommend at the end of the day. As I mentioned, these brakes do have a good significant amount of power. They're also very small. So like this lever doesn't have a lot of volume, doesn't hold a ton of fluid, as well as the caliper. Caliper it's a really small caliper, and so we found that they do get hot because there's less material there. They do heat up quick and they stay hot as you're using them. So they do have power, but it's hard to like recommend this brake for long, prolonged downhills where they do get hot. All right, guys, time for our favorite brake, the new Lewis Tech EP6. So it's a 6-piston brake at $850, and I am just kidding. I really am not a huge fan of these brakes. Me and Reed and Alex have had several bleeding problems, and we just don't love how they feel. They do have power, so I will give them that. I would say that they tie with the Sram Maven in power as our second most powerful brake in this list of 7. So let's look at these levers. They are a large lever. They look similar to the Sram Maven where they come all the way out the side here, and that does cause more compatibility issues. So you cannot run these brakes with the stock E-Ride Pro switch setup, and you also can't run them on a stock E-Ride Pro fork because they have a 220 mil adapter built into the brake. So we've been able to run them because we're running an EXT Ferro fork, but this will not work on the front or the rear of an E-Ride Pro. So as far as compatibility, that is a problem. Talking about more compatibility issues here, as we mentioned, you can't fit this bracket on the stock E-Ride Pro, you know, little bracket here. This is an aftermarket Warp 9 one to get it to fit. I worked on this brake for an hour and a half yesterday trying to get it so that all the pistons would actuate properly. It seemed that 3 of them were stuck, and I had 3 on one side that were all the way out. And what it had basically done was push our caliper so far to the side that our rotor was grinding on the metal sides of the caliper on here, and it wore our rotor down so much that you can literally see this ridge line. Now, none of our other rotors have done this. This normally happens when you wear a rotor out like over thousands and thousands and thousands of miles, but this is literally done from grinding. I can see the grind marks on this. I've taken the pads out, I've reset the pistons, I've bled it, I've cleaned the pistons so that they would actuate smoother. We're still just having issues where when you clamp this down, it could be totally centered, your pads are reset, and it will literally pull your caliper to one side so far that then it rubs on the rotor. And it's not just like incompatibility issue, like we know what we're doing. this brake is just kind of a pain in our butt. And we had it on this bike for the last couple weeks, and after this video we're taking them off and we're putting on Sram Mavens because they're so much better for less money. Now let's talk about lever feel. In our opinion, these levers don't feel very good at all. They have very little pull, and you can adjust them, but it doesn't really get around the fact that like they only pull a little bit, and the modulation you feel, you basically feel like it's an on or off brake. And when they get hot after a long downhill, you have to pull them so hard that your pointer finger is literally like hurting. Like we ride all the time. Like I ride all these trails like several times a week, and I'll test all the brakes on them. My hands come down hurting the absolute most from these Lewis Tech brakes, because in order to get the power that they do have, you got to pull them really hard. And for $850, it's just not my recommendation. Every day of the week, I would rather be riding Sram Mavens for $600, and they're gonna be more reliable, have less bleeding issues. When we got this brake, we were trying to bleed it because it came totally flat, just like our other Lewis Tech brakes came. One of them came totally flat, as did this one, and we had tons of leaking issues where fluid would come out the sides of this reservoir. We were eventually able to fix it, but it's just not the kind of problems you should be having in an $850 brake set. So for that, yes, they have power. No, I don't like the way the lever feels. No, they're not reliable. No, there's no upgraded aftermarket pads or an easy way to get pads when you wear them out. So Lewis Tech EP6 are not our recommended brake. All right, guys, time for our last brake. This is our most expensive and most powerful brake. So this is the Volar Sport brake. This is the first moto style designed for these small E-motos. The lever is huge. The caliper is absolutely massive. This is also the only brake that you have to buy with rotors and brackets. They use proprietary brackets on the front and the rear to mount the caliper, and they use their own rotors. Now, you can use different rotors. The bracket on the front is specific for a 250 mil size rotor. It comes with a nice 3 mil thick rotor. Alex showed that. It's a nice rotor. It comes and it's perfectly set up for the brake and everything, nice and thick and sturdy. Now, the one thing we don't like is that on the rear, if you have like an upgraded wheel, like a Warp 9 wheel that uses your standard front rotor bolt pattern, then the rotor that comes with this kit isn't going to fit or work on your bike. So you have to get a typical 220 mil rotor, and then this will mount up on there. And you can't buy the brakes without rotors, so that makes them more expensive than they need to be, because some people already have a 250 mil rotor on the front, 220 on the back. I know I did. Like a couple months back, that's the setup I had, and I could have bought these brakes for less money than $950 because I had to option them with rotors. Now, these brakes are extremely powerful. They really are a moto brake. They have a moto lever. So I come from mountain bikes, not motos. I don't come from a 250 or 450 or whatever with moto style brakes like this. I come from mountain bike brakes like the Sram Maven or the TRP DHR Evo. And so I like those brakes better. But for you moto guys, you're gonna like this brake if you like the feel of a moto lever. But when I rode these and tried these, and same opinion for Alex and Reed, Alex is behind the camera here, they have extreme amounts of power, like really tons of power, more than I would ever need personally. But I just don't like the lever feel or how it modulates. In my opinion, it feels just off and on. I mean, you've got full off here and maybe less than a centimeter, you go to full on, and I feel like there's no feeling in between. It's just off or hard, off or hard. So for me, it's hard for me to recommend these for like trail and mountain riding. I think they are great for track riding. They have a ton of power. They're not going to overheat as fast because they have a huge caliper. So I think you guys will know if these are the brakes for you. If you want a moto style brake, these are for you. If you want a really high-end mountain bike style brake that still has a ton of power and performance, then that's like the Sram Maven or some of the other brakes that we've talked about today. So let's talk about reliability and like quality control and bleeding and stuff like that. The one downside to this brake is it comes in all the pieces. So it hasn't been bled. It just comes with a lever, a caliper, the brackets, and a hose. You have to provide your own bleed kit and do the bleed process. This is a moto style bleed, so we weren't as familiar as some of the mountain bike styles. We were able to get it figured out, but we had two cases where we were actually leaking brake fluid out of the pistons on the caliper, which is definitely not supposed to happen. Volar Sport did a really good job in getting us a caliper sent out quickly. So we did get a replacement caliper, and we've still had some bleeding issues with that one where the oil was leaking out of the pistons. It's kind of off and on, so we don't really know what the fix is, but it's definitely, that's not like an issue that you have because of the way you're bleeding it. Oil's just never supposed to come out of your pistons. So keep that in mind. They are a new company. They're made in Italy. They're not a giant manufacturer with a perfect facility like some of these mountain bike style brakes where they pump out tons and tons of brakes. So hopefully we can see some improvements with that quality as time goes on. They are a new brake, and what they have going for them is that power. All right, guys, it's time to help you understand which brake is going to be best for the type of riding you do. But to do that, we're going to narrow down our brake fleet a little bit. So we started with 7 brakes. We're going to narrow it down to 4. We're going to cut off the Hayes Dominion A4 brakes. They were our least expensive brake, but because of the narrow rotor compatibility, we don't necessarily recommend this brake. We think if you want to be around the $500 range, spend just a little more at $540 and get the TRP brakes. We're also going to cut off the Lewis Tech LH4 brakes. We had those bleeding issues. We still haven't been able to get that brake performing the way it needs to from the factory. I think they're too expensive at $680, even though we do feel like they do have good power and the lever feels good on the brake that's bled well. We just don't really recommend them for the price. We think the less expensive options like the TRP or the Maven are a better brake. We're also going to remove the Lewis Tech EP6 from this category. $850 is too much money for those brakes. We've had too many issues. We don't like the lever feel. We just really don't recommend that brake for anybody. That leaves us with our 4 brakes remaining. We have the TRP DHR Evo as the least expensive, Hopetech 4v4, and Sram Maven. And then our way more expensive than those other 3 are going to be the Volar Sport Moto style brakes. So now with our 4 brakes remaining, let's go over what brake we feel is best for what type of riding you do. Our categories we're going to talk about are street riding, and then like motocross track riding, and then any kind of trail riding, mountain trails, desert trails, single track, that kind of stuff. So talking about the Volar Sports first, these are obviously an extremely powerful brake. They're moto style, so if you like moto style brakes, you're gonna like these brakes. If you're a big heavy rider, you're gonna like these brakes if you want tons of power. If you ride a motocross track and you like dirt bikes, you're gonna like these brakes. They're gonna be best for you. They don't heat up as quick as the mountain bike style brakes. They do have that lots of power on and off. They're really good for coming down off of a jump, braking really hard before a corner, letting her go again. They do perform really well in that case. If you like a more mountain bike style brake and you still ride motocross, we're going to recommend this Sram Maven brake. That's going to be the next step up in performance and power. They also don't get hot very quickly. They don't last as long as these because they are still a much smaller brake, but that at the end of the day, they're still going to be great for you. Next in line is going to be the Hopetech and the TRP. Those are going to be not that far behind the Sram Maven, but they do have a little bit less power, little smaller calipers and levers that are going to heat up a little quicker as well. All right, for street riding, again, if you like a moto brake, if you want the absolute most power possible, Volar Sport is going to be for you. If you like a mountain bike style brake, Sram Maven is next in line, still has a ton of power. In my opinion, a lot better modulation, and I think I would pick it for street over this. And then TRP and Hopetech are going to be just behind Maven, not far behind, just slightly less power than the Sram Maven. Okay, now for the type of riding that we do the most, trail riding, desert riding, single track, all that kind of nice mountain riding. We prefer the Sram Maven brakes. Me, Reed, and Alex, that's gonna be our top pick. They have lots of power, they modulate the best, they're reliable. That's gonna be our pick. Close second is gonna be TRP DHR Evo and the Hopetech 4v4. Those are both excellent brakes and they're not far behind the Maven in this type of riding. Again, if you want a huge moto style powerful brake, then the Volar Sports are going to work for you. But we like the way that the powerful mountain bike brakes modulate. We feel like we can get on and off our brakes quicker and dodge rocks and things like that. We just feel like they perform best in the type of riding we do. One last thing I want to mention is as you're picking what brake you think is going to be best for the type of riding you do, just please consider your rider weight and your bike's weight. If you're putting brakes on a big, heavy, fully modded, upgraded E-moto that's 160 or 170 pounds, you will need more braking power than if your bike is like stock at 130 pounds or 140 pounds. You will actually notice a difference. And if you're a 130-pound rider, any of these brakes are going to be fantastic for you. They will have tons of performance. But if you're 280 pounds, 300-pound rider, and you ride hard especially, pretty much the only brake for you is going to be these Volar Sports. If you're that big of a guy, you're going to want this kind of braking performance. Now, us at 180 pounds, 200 pounds, whatever, I think the mountain bike brakes can still be a fantastic brake for you. Now, if you guys are interested in any of these brakes, again, this was totally unbiased. We only sell one of these brakes on our website, and it wasn't like the utmost category winner here. So check the link in our description. We'll have a link to purchase any one of these brakes from a good reputable site, and you guys can pick whichever one you feel is best. If you enjoyed this video or if you found it helpful, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps out our channel. And if you need any E-moto parts, check the link in the description. Use the discount code there. Get yourself some awesome parts. We'll catch you next video. See ya.